Roth conversions for the majority of retirees is just a bad idea, and I'll show you why using numbers, facts. This way you can understand if Roth can be a good idea, because a Roth can help certain retirees, but you'll have to see if you fit those qualifications. What happens is a lot of people use scare tactics like taxes are going up, or telling you that you don't know what the taxes are going to be, or they use elation tactics like you're going to be tax-free for life and retirement. But those numbers don't tell the whole picture, because effective rates aren't marginal rates, and how you present the numbers is completely different. When I show you an actual case study I did, it will make so much sense. Because a lot of these professionals are not tax experts. I'm an enrolled agent by the IRS. That's the highest credentials the IRS gives on taxes. And I'm letting you know that a Roth, for the majority of you, is just not a good idea. So I'm going to go through who should do a Roth conversion, because there's a lot of people that should do a Roth conversion and it can be beneficial. And then when you should do it, because when is actually just as important as who should do it. So why should you never convert to a Roth for Roth conversions? Well, for many of you, there's no tax savings ever. What a Roth is a arbitrage method of paying more tax today to pay less tax in the future. And for a lot of people, that break-even point, let's say the break-even point at the best point is 5 years, but the break-even can actually be up to 20, 25 years before you even break even on a Roth, if ever, and you may never break even at all on the Roth. Because most retirees, the majority of them, are already in the lowest bracket. If all your goal is to take out withdrawals, you're already in that lowest bracket already. And here's something that they use against my argument, which is taxes today aren't taxes tomorrow. And that's true. Taxes are going up in 2026. But what they're not telling you is the tax law can change for Roths. But here's the thing. Now, this is not someone's actual tax return, so don't panic. This is a mock-up that we did with someone who wanted to see a rough picture of what would happen with their taxes. And because I have IRS software, I can give you exact numbers on what happens with a Roth conversion. So here's what their typical withdrawal rate looks like. Now, this is a single woman doing a withdrawal, and she was at a 16% total, which means the effective rate is 16%. Now, she was shown that if she converts approximately $181,000, she'll go from 16% to 24%, making a difference of 8% difference, but now it's tax-free for that conversion. Well, there's a problem with that logic, and that is effective rates are not marginal rates. And while I'm not going to give you a nerd epilepsy using about a bunch of nonsense about taxes, let me simplify this for you. Yes, it's true, 16 and 24% are the effective rates, but the problem is that she's converting $181,000 and her tax is $51,000. So you have to factor the tax in between the difference between the 181 and the 51. And this is the marginal rate of tax. So she's actually going to pay 28% tax on that conversion, 28%. Now, I know in her life she would never even come close to paying 28% at all, ever. So therefore, it makes no sense for her to do that conversion. Now, if you look at most people, when they look at these kind of Roth conversions, they're looking at them from effective rates. So here's your nerd tip. Do it from a marginal rate. Determine how much you're going to convert from a Roth, and you're going to pay tax, versus, and don't look at the effective rate, look at what you're paying between the money you're converting and the tax you're paying. That's your marginal rate of your conversion. And that will give you your real tax rate on that conversion, not that baloney 8% figure. So for many of you, when you think about it, your first dollars that come into your account for the year are tax-free because of the standard or itemized deduction. So your first dollars are tax-free. Whereas when you pay a Roth, what are you paying a Roth conversion in? You're paying in the highest bracket for that year. Now, I'm not saying that's not a necessarily bad thing, because if you're in a low income year and your brackets are low, that could be a good time to convert into a Roth. But if you're looking at it from a normative perspective, your first dollars are tax-free. Therefore, it's always beneficial for you to try maximizing your most deductions in that year versus paying taxes at the highest bracket of conversion. Now, for many of you, I just showed you an example of this woman doing income of $121,000, and with her standard deduction, her effective rate was 16%. You can see that there's not many savings at all in doing a Roth and doing that. But let's say, for example, when you have RMDs. Now, if RMDs start to trigger your IRMA tax, so if you start having RMDs that start triggering a high level of IRMA, there could be a reason to do that. But again, I'm going to show you an actual IRMA chart. It doesn't make too much sense in most cases anyway. Or if you need a lot of money, right? If you need a lot of money, at some point you plan on buying an island, a boat, a second house, third house, whatever. Roths can be great for conversions because you can look at using that money and using that growth tax-free. So here are the IRMA rates, and all IRMA is the additional Medicare tax that you pay if you trigger in so much income in retirement and you're on Medicare, which means you're 65 and older. You can see initially for the first $103,000 or $206,000 if you're single or married, there is no IRMA tax. At the next level, you're only going to be paying a cumulative tax of roughly a little over $900 a year. So does it make sense to use a Roth IRA to avoid an additional $900 in taxes if your income is going to be in the $200,000 range or $100,000 range if you're single? No. Potentially at $129,000 to $161,000, sure, right? But it's still marginal. And here is the second lie, is how they use certain softwares to give very pretty pictures for things that don't make sense. So I watched this example of someone showing a client that had a $2 million portfolio that would grow at roughly 6.5% a year. And that is roughly what you're actually getting for an average return from the market. It's not the average rate of 9%. Those numbers are junk. The actual compounded annual growth rate is probably about 6.5. So those numbers are accurate, but you can't apply it in a linear fashion to one's retirement. So for example, I'm using a $2 million retirement. I'm showing a 6.5%, 6.5%, 6.5%. That's $2.42 million. And if you show the Roth, and then you show the benefit of the Roth plus 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, those numbers look really pretty on the software. There's a problem. It's called reality. This is what the market actually does. It goes down 24%, then it goes up 13%, then it goes up 31%. Now you'll see that I'm giving an average return of 20%. Whereas before, I'm using 19.5. So I'm giving a higher average on this example, so you can't say that I'm skewing the numbers. And the 24% decrease, it doesn't make a difference if it's in year 2 or year 3. It's irrelevant because average returns are lies when you factor in your money. Because now the $2 million goes on to 1.52 in year 2, 1.72, the final year 2.25. And again, it doesn't make a difference where that 24% is in year 1 or 3, it's irrelevant. Because when you factor this in, it doesn't make sense because average growth rates are literally a clown show. Let's say, for example, the market goes down 50%, it goes up 50%, that's a 0% average, right? Or if the market goes up 50 and it comes down 50, it's 0. No, it does not. If you have $1 million, it goes down 50%, that's $500,000. If it goes up another 50%, you're at $750,000. The math works exactly the same if you go the other way. If you go up 50%, you're at $1.5 million. If it comes down by 50%, you're at $750,000. Or what? It doesn't make sense because compounded averages are the real number in retirement. So I'm giving a higher growth of 20% versus the 19.5, and you see you're close to missing $200,000. So if you're applying Roth conversions on these silly softwares that are showing these bunny rabbits and flowers popping out saying you're going to earn 6.5 on average every year, which is technically true on a compounded rate, but that's not how it actually works in reality, and therefore the numbers are completely and utterly skewed. Now, what if we add the sequence of returns risk? Well, then we have an additional compounded issue showing even a lower return than the 2.25 million. And I gotta say, people don't factor in the sequence of returns risk because if the market comes down and you need a roof, you need HVAC, you need something, that 2.25 is gonna be a lot lower, okay? But who should convert? Well, if you hit any of these factors, basically a Roth could be a benefit. So if you have over $2 million, that's not a hard and fast rule. You could have under $1 million and a Roth can be good. But I'm saying if you're over $2 million, that's pretty much where I would start with. So if you're under $2 million, the best time to use a Roth would be if you have a very low income year, then a Roth can be a benefit. Also, if you have IRMA tax considerations, okay, or I could see that point. If your RMDs are triggering IRMA, absolutely. Now here's something to be considerate of. If you're going to give this money to heirs, anyone as a form of legacy, you have to look at the amount of money they're paying in tax. Now, if they're not making much money in income, a Roth doesn't make sense. But if they're a high earner and they're already in one of the highest brackets to earn money, and they're going to be inheriting that money. They're inheriting at the highest bracket. So typically, as long as you're under that bracket, a Roth makes sense. What if the market drops a ton? Then a Roth makes sense because you're going to get the growth of the return of the market tax-free. Also, any low tax years, any low income years, Roths make sense if you see what your future projections are with your taxes.